Samsung's Galaxy S line, like their S10, S8 phones, are very well known. They market them heavily, especially in North America. We see these things everywhere. Their A lineup is not as well known, and for the past couple of years, their A line, which is their kind of mid-tier budget line, has not been great. They have these mediocre phones, and they've let Chinese brands just dominate that market over the past little bit. But this year, they brought something that feels legitimate and competitive in this market. These are the A20, A50, and A70 phones from Samsung. So these phones have been available in Europe and Asia for the past month or so, maybe 2 months, but they're finally coming into North America. And the fact that they're bringing these into US and Canada is both interesting and somewhat telling as to how confident Samsung is about these phones in terms of how well they'll actually do, how competitive they actually are in today's market. So these are priced at $250, $350, and about $550, maybe $570 US dollars. I'm not able to get an exact US price on this because this one is not available in the US. The other two are. I'm just converting from Canadian dollars to US for the A70. Now, at this price point, for these exact prices, if I'm being honest, if you're getting a Chinese branded phone, like either a Huawei or a Xiaomi phone, you're gonna get slightly faster processors for your money with the Chinese phones. With these three Samsung phones, you're getting a way better OLED panel, you're getting cleaner software, a wide-angled camera system, and a brand name if that's important to you. Now, these are missing some relatively important features. So things that they are missing that matter to me, you don't get stereo speakers, you don't get wireless charging, and you don't get any kind of water resistance. So there are phones out there that don't have an official IP rating, like they're not officially certified for water resistance, but they do have a degree of water resistance kind of built into the phone manufacturing process. There is seemingly none of that with these phones. So when I pop out the SIM tray, there isn't even a rubber gasket on that. On devices like the OnePlus phones and even the Pixel 3a, even though these aren't officially IP certified, there is a rubber gasket. So in the manufacturing process of these Samsung A series phones, they really didn't seem to care about water resistance. Now, in terms of things they do have on these phones, and these are probably more important, they have excellent OLED panels. These are really nice looking screens for the price point. They also have headphone jacks, they have expandable storage, they have big batteries, and they also have a flat screen edge. This is something I've talked about in some of my phone videos. I feel like some of the premium phone manufacturers out there put this curvature to the front display, and it doesn't really do anything functionally. If anything, it impedes the display. It just looks really pretty. And I'm glad that for a device like this, they kept it flat. So clearly, these phones are made for real use, not to look pretty in pictures and commercials, but for real functionality. Now, another feature all three of these share is a plastic back. And I'll be honest, for the first few days I used this, I actually thought it was glass because it's got that glass shimmer, it's got that glass glossiness to it, but it is actually plastic. Well, Samsung calls it Glastic, but it's a plastic back. With that plastic back, this device scratches more easily, and because it's got such a shiny finish, the scratches show. But it's the right decision, right? If you ever drop a plastic phone, it's not gonna shatter, it's not gonna spider. This is the way to go, and it makes it cheaper, right? I'm glad that they spent less money on the backing material and more money on the internals of the device, where it actually matters. Plastic on a phone at this price is the way to go. The previous A-series phones, they had glass even at the $300, $400 price point. It made no sense. Plastic was the right choice. Okay, I'm not gonna do a review on all three of these phones. The one that I like the most is the A50. It's the $350 unit, so I'm gonna focus this conversation around this. This is $100 more than the A20, and you get a higher res screen. It's 1080p instead of the 720p on the A20. You get a zoom lens on the camera. You get an in-display fingerprint sensor, which works surprisingly well for a $350 phone. It's not super fast, like you do have to get used to its speed, and you also have to get used to the positioning of your thumb when you place it on the screen. But once you get used to it, it works well. And it's features like this that make this phone stick out for me. It's not like a flagship killer. Clearly that's not what they're going for. They don't want to cannibalize the sales of their actual flagship phones, but they're bringing features like this in-display fingerprint sensor and just a solid overall phone experience at a $350 price point. It's awesome. But you should be aware of, I guess, two big differences between these three phones and the more expensive flagship phone. So I'll just kind of go over the two. The big one is performance. These three phones are not running the fastest SoCs out there. The A50 and A70 are running more mid-tier stuff. The A20 is running more entry-level stuff. It still offers great value for the money at $250, but if you're looking for kind of like a snappy experience, and I feel like a lot of my audience is, I wouldn't go for this one. It's not so much the in-app performance or even the UI, it's more about switching switching between apps. With only 3 gigs of RAM, this is a more limited experience. The A50 is a lot better with the faster processor and 4 gigs of RAM, but I still did notice some pretty aggressive app closures, and I do think it's a matter of RAM management. Samsung's never been awesome at it. I really wish I was getting better performance with this phone because of its price point, but that's what we have. If you're just using your phone in a more, I guess like a more simple manner, like you're not switching between 5 or 6 apps frequently, then you probably won't even notice it. But for the people that are used to multitasking and want to multitask, then you will notice a difference in performance between this and something with more RAM. And the 6 gigs of RAM in the A70 deliver a smoother experience, but it is a lot more expensive, so you kind of expect that. Now, the other feature that is similar between these 3 phones and different from all the other flagship phones out there is the camera system. Now, traditionally, Samsung's mid-tier phone lineup has usually been packed with poor cameras, and this year's cameras are good, but they're not great. I wish I could say that they're great, but I can't because of the existence of the Pixel 3a and the Pixel 3a XL. This phone's camera is just so much better than these 3, and it's like similar in price, so it's hard to call these things anything better than good. If you're taking shots in good lighting conditions or outdoors, that's fine. There's some overexposure and sometimes focusing has some issues, but I'm happy with it. It's the low light photos it has troubles with. It overexposes some of the lights and it just struggles. But to be honest, I'm content with these cameras. Like, for the money, I'm not gonna complain, right? I'm not looking for the best camera. If I was, I'd be picking up the Pixel 3a or the Pixel 3a XL for this kind of price point, but you're getting a really good phone experience overall with the A series. And as I used these phones for the past little bit, it just made me realize that, like, I remember Marques a few years ago saying, good phones are getting cheap, cheap phones are getting good. And this, to me, is like, this is clearly a really cheap phone that is great. It's pressure from the consumer market and pressure from the Chinese manufacturers that have shaped these phones to be what they are, to be as good as they are for as little as they cost. But if you're interested in an inexpensive phone, I highly recommend checking out these A-series phones. They surprised me. Like, I've never loved the older ones. These ones are fantastic. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. See you guys next time.